Hello, ladies and gentlemen, the American Jerry and Bulldog Nation, second day of the podcast. Those of you that watched it live on Facebook, I apologize. We had this thing tuned in such high quality sound that you can't make this up. Facebook isn't ready for that. So therefore, we had to tone it down a little bit. So I'm hoping today will be better. But lots on tap for you today. We're going to cover everything going on with the presidential campaign. Just like I do with local news, we're going to dive into it a little deeper. In addition to that, I have some breaking local news for you in the tri-state, and we're going to cover some legal issues as well. So stay tuned. I'm ready to go. All right, I have been working for the past week on a package of materials that I'm using to raise funds for the Durrani litigation. And in the process of doing so and putting my life together, so to speak, I have, reinforced what I do and reinforced what I'd like to share with you. And that is, it's an incredible honor that I am the person in the tri-state area here and regionally that you turn to with information that no one else is going to cover. So I would like to begin today's podcast with taking a shot at Channel 12 WKRC local news. So here's what happens at the end of my day at the office. I'll come home and wife is usually fixing supper, and she always has on Channel 12, Channel 9, Channel 5, Fox 19 local news before we turn it to ESPN, and I watch Pardon and the Eruption as well as around the world. And I want you to know that I watch this just for a brief period of time to see what the hell they're talking about and going on. You can't make it up. I think these be the name of my podcast, Roger. You can't make it up. But get this. Channel 12 made it very clear that yesterday was not Columbus Day for Channel 12. It was Indigenous Peoples Day. And they made a point to bring up that Barack Obama, made sure that this was supposed to be Indigenous Peoples Day, which is hysterical because the Trump campaign has now uncovered Kamala Harris destroying Christopher Columbus. Now, think what that does to Italian Americans across the country, especially in our major cities, when they start trashing Christopher Columbus and trying to change Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. Number 2 strike against WKRC. I get this every time I watch. It's hysterical. Is they ran a 2-minute clip about Kamala Harris's campaign and her wanting to get out and speak more. And it was all a positive spin on Kamala Harris. You see, our local news stations are owned by national news agencies, which are woke. Now, some more information. Remember, I tell you, I get people feed me, and I want to encourage you to feed me information. And I protect my sources. You can text me at 859-250-2527. You can even text me during the podcast if you've got a question or a topic that you'd like me to hit upon. Also, you can email me at eric@ericdeters.com. But I protect my sources. I received information this morning that St. Elizabeth now they were saying that they weren't out. But I received information this morning that St. Elizabeth Medical Center is out of IV fluids. Now, I haven't heard anything about the Cincinnati hospitals. But I know somebody who had a surgery, and the family reported to me they are out of IV fluids at St. Elizabeth Medical Center. And the reason why, apparently the IV fluids comes from a plant out of North Carolina that was wiped out by Helene. Now you have to ask yourself this question. If that's the case, and IV fluids are so damn important, what the hell has the Biden administration done, if anything, to remedy that issue? I've heard about the shortages, but the local hospitals here said that wasn't a problem. And remember, I reported that they were saying they were using Gatorade. Another local story worth reporting. I met this morning with the sweetest young lady and her mother who got kicked out of the Thomas More nursing program because of the COVID vax mandates when the COVID, quote-unquote, pandemic was going on. And to listen to the story is just so darn sad, and how it kills the spirit of this young woman who wanted to be a nurse, and how the COVID mandates, which they no longer have, by the way. You know, do they think we forget how they've reversed course on all that they did to us during the quote-unquote pandemic? And remember, if I've reported this, we had a lawsuit going on against Thomas More College with 3 students who were supposed to be part of a physical therapy program that never materialized. They didn't get credentialed. These 3 students wasted years in a program that did them nothing. And does Thomas More do anything? This Catholic university? That's right. Thomas More College, a Catholic university, the Diocese of Covington, the Bill Robinson Institute of Religious Freedom, Ray Bear, who puts on the Law Day. Thomas More College is one of the least Christian institutions in the tri-state. By the way, if you're just tuning into me for the first time, you're getting a little bit of flavor of what I do that nobody else around does it. Everybody jumps on the bandwagons of the hospitals and corporate healthcare, angling at how they can make some business or get some advantage from them. Only yours truly bashes the hell out of them, as they deserve to be bashed. Thomas More College is not a Christian university. It is the typical institutional dinosaur who's all about making money and advancing the cause of the people that run it. That's what it's all about. They'll never get a dime from me. Some more local information that I'd like to share with you. And, you know, the Butcher Pakistan story is the most epic legal story in the history of this country. It puts Aaron Brockovich, Dark Waters, to shame. The civil jury to shame. And the world's going to learn about this story. One of the 1,000 sub-stories to the Butcher Pakistan, 1,000 anecdotes that exist with this story, is how Medical Protective, the insurance company for Dr. Durrani, is drawing out litigation as long as they can, and to avoid paying any of these victims, which their insured committed medical malpractice against, and over 100 have died. Yesterday, I received another phone call. Donald Helton, Denise Helton's husband. I should have called before. She passed away July 31st. I found your number in her phone. I would preferably like to talk to you personally. And I, of course, called him. Donna has her birthday. She was born on September 14th, 1954. Went to Astabula High School, class of 1972. And this woman is pictured right here. I think this is her niece. She is right here. Helton. And here's a picture of her from high school. These are humans, folks. These aren't just numbers. Denise Helton had a surgery at University Hospital on February 15th, 2012. They knew all about Durrani. She got MRSA. She has lost wages. She's part of the litigation against Medical Protective as well. And it's diabolically sick. Our community, the Cincinnati community, everybody talks up like Northern Kentucky, one Northern Kentucky, the building that they're building down there on the river. All that is for all the teacups, all the power-hungry people that want to control our region. And then you got Greater Cincinnati, CDC, they all went. This community, the Cincinnati area community, allowed for 5 years, Dr. Atik Durrani to perform unnecessary spine surgeries on patients, including children, and none of them have apologized for it. None of them been prosecuted for it. UC, University, Westchester, Children's, Deaconess, Journey Light, Christ, Good Samaritan, Jewish, nothing. And you had physician groups, including St. Elizabeth physician groups, sending patients to be butchered by Dr. Durrani, knowing that there was a problem. Another local story that's come up that I need information from, and I will continue to get information on, is Sun Behavior. Sun Behavior is ran, it's the mental health hospital, which is ran by Sun Behavior with St. Elizabeth Medical Center. The atrocities that are coming out of there are unbelievable. And I know one from firsthand because it came from a relative of mine. So it's really, really off the charts. Now, let's get into some presidential politics. And nobody spoke about this, talked about this after the convention, Democratic convention. Everybody was all worried. Oh, Kamala's going to win. Oh. And from then I said, no. Her campaign is going to self-destruct. It's going to self-destruct because Trump's going to define her. Trump's going to treat her just like he did Hillary. In addition to that, Trump has a winning record. Trump has substance. She has no policies. She has no talent, no ability to get out there. So they tried to hide her. And what did I say was going to happen when it starts going south? They panic and they make it worse. So knowing that the hiding did not work, I mean, this is the latest. Trump's apparently up Michigan by 3 now. I mean, the momentum is going. And you've got early voting going. I mean, so it's happening at a perfect time. It is impossible. I shouldn't say impossible because I guess there is some wild and crazy, far-fetched thing that could happen. But it is 99% impossible for Kamala Harris to reverse what's going on in her campaign, which is self-destruction. And the reason why is because where the campaign is and where she has herself, she's now trapped and stuck. So she's now wanting to go out and talk to anybody and everybody, including Joe Rogan. How do you think that's going to go? It's just going to, she's in quicksand now. So as she tries to dig out, she's going to get, Brett Baer, come on. Brett Baer's not my favorite, but that interview's not going to go well. Brett Baer's going to hit her with the tough questions. Charlemagne the God, really? Joe Rogan, really? I mean, for Kamala Harris to be, and you know her internal polling is say she would not be doing these things if her pollsters weren't telling. And then what else did I say? What else? I said internally people will be bailing on her and spilling out things to Trump world, wanting to suck up to Trump. Now, yesterday, and I'm going to be reporting this on the Eric Deters show when I report the news, she's now been busted. Just think about this, late stage, 21 days before the election, for plagiarism. The book that she apparently wrote back in 2009 or 2019, I know there's a 9 in there. I forgot what it was. Guess what? She's apparently copied Wikipedia stuff. Also, she now has come out and she wants to forgive 1 million loans to black entrepreneurs. Are you kidding? Now just think of the quicksand of her saying something like that. What about all the other entrepreneurs? How do they feel? And the black entrepreneurs feel pandered to, and they're like, yeah, right. So everything she does just blows up on her. She wants to forgive these loans. Kamala Harris is in quicksand. Catholic voters have traditionally been Democratic voters. Trump is now up with the Catholic voters. And he did a town hall yesterday with just women. And guess what? It was wonderful. People started needing, it was hot. People started needing assistance. So what did Trump say? Trump said, let's turn on some music. They played Ave Maria. He goes, isn't this beautiful? See, Trump is real. See, you can't take Waltz, give him with a shotgun, make him look like Elmer Fudd, go out and act like he's hunting, and They do memes with him putting a tampon in the shotgun and everything else. He becomes a joke. He can't load his own shotgun. Credibility is everything. Being yourself works. Some people aren't going to like you, but everybody that loves you are going to say, well, he's legitimate. So when Trump just stays Trump, everybody loves it. And it's endearing because at least you know what you got. Here's how bad it is for Kamala Harris right now. Yesterday, Bill Clinton, they sent Bill down to Georgia. I'm going to do my Clinton invitation. All right, Kamala, you want me to go to Georgia? I'll go to Georgia for you. I'll go down there and tell them. I'll say anything you want me to say. I'll do it for you. Hillary, I get away from Hillary. That's one reason why I'm willing to go down to Georgia is I get away from Hillary.
Did you notice something? His hand shakes really bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got the shakes. But anyway, we'll all get the shakes before we die if we live old. But he brings up Lincoln Riley. And he says, now he was trying to make a point about the law, the legislation to get passed. But he said if they were properly vetted, Lincoln Riley wouldn't have been killed. That's the Georgia nursing student. I mean, and Trump's going to take that clip and make a commercial out of it. You got Bill Clinton destroying her on the border with that just one moment. And then, of course, Sunday, you had J.D. Vance destroying ABC News, Marsha Raddatz, with, do you hear yourself? And see, that's just real talk when they're trying to twist things around. Here's how bad Kamala Harris is. She's an anti-Semitic presidential candidate who's lost the Arab votes. Trump's up 3 in Michigan. There's a lot of Arabs in Michigan. She's now losing the Arab vote. She messed that up. And there's already backlash. Obama yelling at men for not voting for Kamala, chewing out black men. And how hysterical is it when you got Barack Obama admitting there isn't enthusiasm? That's how bad it is. I think this was a joke, but I called it, and President Trump has called it, although it's probably too late now. If this would have happened 30 days ago, they would. There's some talks. Will they try to replace Kamala Harris again? Hillary, will you come in? Bill, will you come in? Oh, I can't do it anymore. I'll have to do my 2 terms. Hillary loved to be president. Get rid of her for me. I mean, unbelievable. And then you got these endorsements, which every time, see, you got to understand something. I have found in history and in life, you never know what the counterpunch is or what the counter effect of something is. You think it's going to be this, but it's not always that. It's that cliche. Be careful what you wish for. And here's the point that I'm talking about, is the black vote, when they try to push them, they go the other way. When you talk about lack of enthusiasm, it makes the enthusiasm problem even worse. So everything that they do, again, quicksand or the boomerang, and you've got to be careful about that. I've seen it happen in law. I've seen it happen in life. I've seen it happen in politics. I'm reading Harry Truman's book by David McCullough. I'm rereading it. One of the best biographies I've ever read. I love Harry Truman. He was one of the presidents that we were rotating yesterday. There's a quote from Harry Truman in the front of the book, which I turned into a graphic yesterday, and it was, you never know what life has in store for you. Harry Truman went from judge executive of a county, Jackson County in Kansas City, to a judge executive, to a U.S. senator, to vice president, to president of the United States. I think it was 6 years. Grover Cleveland went from sheriff, judge executive, governor of New York, to president, and I think 4 years.
You ever been to his museum in
Yes.
In Kansas City?
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes.
He financed it all by himself.
Yes. I'm telling you, folks, you never know. So what's happened to the Kamala Harris and the Democrats is what I would refer to as divine providence. You know, I'm not a Bible thumper. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. But I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not going to be a phony and act like I go to church every Sunday and all that stuff. Pretend I don't. All right? I'm a fallen Catholic, I guess. But the bottom line is that I do believe in divine providence. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in other people's lives. And I see it in President Trump's presidency pursuit. He came one fraction of an inch from having his head blown off on national television. But he didn't, did he? He didn't. He almost got blown up at a golf course, but he didn't, did he? Sometimes God helps those who help themselves, but sometimes man cannot overcome what God has in store for them. And I'm telling you, they thought they could get rid of Joe Biden in a political coup, put in Kamala Harris, because it's all about winning, not what's best for the country. They admitted that. And then, now that has failed. They could have never, you see how God and divine providence works? Could they have ever expected a hurricane to not just hit Florida, but wipe out North Carolina, and then the response be terrible, dragging him down even more? Or things get escalated at Gaza? Things get worse for Ukraine? You see? And Harry Truman is correct. You never know what God has in store for you. President Donald Trump has got God on his side, I'm telling you. Divine providence is there. The proof is in what they try to do to him. Remember, I always say, it's hard to feel sorry for a billionaire. And it's hard to make a martyr out of a billionaire. But these bozos have successfully done it. They've done it. I came up with this, and I'm a list maker. That's how I keep organized. It's how I get my job done. You know, it's amazing. And there was an arrest yesterday. David Yost, the Ohio Attorney General, announced arrest of 100 people for human trafficking. 100 were arrested in a statewide human trafficking operation. And it included a former prosecutor. It included somebody who runs a home for children. I mean, it's spooky. It's scary. It's sick. It's evil. And I made this list up. And the list is so long that when you think about what I referred to, remember what I called the American Communist 10? I've been mentioning this for a decade now. The American Communist 10, the media, social media, big tech, Hollywood, the Democratic Party, academia, corporate America, government swamps, professional sports, and the music industry. And they pushed this agenda. And just think, it used to be back in the day, there was like one issue. Like George Bush 41, Herbert Walker Bush, beat Michael Dukakis more than anything else because of Willie Horton. Willie Horton. I mean, bottom line. Well, we now have the most incredible situation in this election with the reasons not to vote for Kamala Harris and to vote for Donald Trump are off the chart. Think about this. The Biden policies and actions, the border, taxes, inflation, chaos in the world, war, woke, women, men, energy, abortion, the deficit, debt, the media, no interviews, the coup, border illegal immigration, inflation, energy dependence, the vax mandate, the lockdowns, the Second Amendment, First Amendment, censorship, defund the police, use of violence, bail policy, attitude towards crime, election integrity, socialized medicine, globalization, sexualization of children, critical race theory, minor sex change, pedophiles, education, student loan forgiveness, human trafficking, men and women's sports, school safety, supply chains, China, Afghanistan, Iran, Russia, Ukraine, North Korea, Gaza, the UN, WHO, CDC, the Supreme Court, taxes, regulation, racism, gender war, God, military, global warming, socialism, the EPA, the IRS, FBI, the Fed, Roe v. Wade, pharma, on and on and on and on. Isn't it amazing when you think about it? The magnitude of it all. All policies of this administration. And they never quit. They never stop. It is such a, they're not what I would refer to as classic liberal. I have some friends who are what I call regular liberals, and they're not woke. I won't name them because I don't want to embarrass them, but they're good people, but they're traditional liberals a la the Jimmy Carter era liberal. And you know, I'm 61 years old, you know that back in the day, we could have conversations with people differing in politics and have civil conversation. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the MAGA movement that veered off course. Donald Trump and MAGA, nobody talks about this. Donald Trump and MAGA stood up to it. They stood up to it. It's the main reason why I supported Donald Trump in 2016. I knew we needed somebody who would stand up to it, say what needed to be said, because Mitt Romney and John McCain were too politically correct. They were afraid to offend anybody, make anybody mad. And all they did, lose. And that's what Trump's done. And Trump is now connected. You know, when you really think about it, and this is a real advantage to Trump. Nobody talks about this either. You're going to get tired of me saying that, but I just like to point out that if you're tuning into this, you're getting views that you're not hearing anywhere else. And it's this. Nobody's talked about this. Donald Trump began campaigning for president in 2015. 2015. So when he began campaigning for president, his number one issue was that border. So he runs in 2016, goes through all of those debates. He's done more debates than anybody ever running for president or been president. So he goes through all those primary debates. He wins. He beats Hillary Clinton. He has 4 years where he's doing the job, being attacked by everybody and anybody, but we've already covered all that. So he does the job. Then he's out 4 years watching the destruction of the country under Joe Biden. So just think about that. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 9 years. The Trump mega movement has had time to perfect itself, grow, strengthen, know the issues, know the facts, know how to debate them, know how to battle them. Think about that. Meanwhile, you got Kamala Harris, she participated in some primary debates back when she ran against Joe Biden, and that's it. She hasn't been given interviews. She's not battle tested at all. And you saw what happened. You know, everybody, I crack up when people say, well, vice presidential debates don't matter. How can you say that? Vice presidential debates can matter and they can't matter. Presidential debates can matter, they can't matter. Every situation's different. Every year's different. Every campaign is different. The vice presidential debate most definitely mattered this year. Why? Because Waltz was exposed for being so bad. He was so bad. And J.D. Vance was exposed for being so polished and good and articulate and polite and knowledgeable. He passed the test. That made a difference. Big difference. In fact, you can trace some of the free falling back to that. That was a trigger turning point to what went on. And now they're trying to undo it, and they can't undo it. They can't undo it. And then they come off like phonies. I was a hero worshiper of the great trial lawyer Jerry Spence. Jerry Spence is portrayed in the movie Silkwood. That was his first big national case. He represented Weaver when he was shot and killed his family out in, I think it was Utah. But he was a big time. He's still alive. I don't think he's passed. But he was an incredible trial lawyer. Wore buckskin in the courtroom. Had that Western persona. And he wrote a lot of books. It's kind of weird. The two people that I've read all their books is Trump and Jerry Spence. I read all their books. And Jerry Spence wrote a book that focused on the importance of being yourself as a trial lawyer. If you stand in front of a jury in a courtroom, you have to be yourself because the jury will recognize if you're phony. It will kill your credibility. Well, the same thing is in politics. If you're in politics and you come off like a phony and you're not yourself, voters will pick up on that and it will be the death knell to you. And that's what we have with Kamala Harris and Walz. You may not like Trump, but do you think Trump has a different side to him than what he's revealed to us for the last 9 years? Hell no. Or his entire life? No. Trump has revealed what he is from day one. So he's got that advantage with credibility, where you've got Walz and Harris, they're trying to be something they're not to garner votes, say things that they want to garner votes. They're beslubbering bloodsuckers, to use some of our Shakespearean insults of the day. So one of the things that another book that Jerry Spence wrote, which I want to tie into what we're talking about politics, is he wrote about how debt enslaves. I want you to think about that. Debt enslaves. It destroys your freedom. It destroys your liberty. It does it if you're an individual, you're a city, you're a county, you're a state, and you're a country. The United States is being enslaved by their debt. No question about it. And you've got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They've spent like drunken sailors. You know, you can say, well, Trump's national debt has gone up, but that was during COVID. Oh, another issue I want to talk about. I haven't talked about this yet, and I'm anxious to share this. This next generation issue. Don't you just love it? Kamala Harris says it's time for the next generation. And after running the octogenarian, the old senile, Parkinson-ridden, brainless Joe Biden, who they all were trying, they lied to us and said he's okay and okay. Again, destroying their credibility. So then they kick him out with a coup. So now Kamala's the young one. So now they're acting, now it's a youth movement. And then they start attacking Trump because I think he's 78 years old. So now they're saying, well, he's the old guy. We're a new generation of leadership. Well, let's talk about the new generation of leadership. How was our country doing under the old guard Democrats and Republicans such as Ronald Reagan, even Jimmy Carter, George Bush, Gerald Ford, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon? The United States was numero uno, and you know how much national debt we had at the end of George Bush 43 and even Bill Clinton? $1 trillion. Look what's happened in the world and United States standing in the world. I mean, Bill Clinton had a Republican House that kept him in check some, but he still sold a whole bunch of military secrets to China. What about this? Nobody talks about this. Is Bill Clinton, new generation, him and Al Gore. George Bush, 43, frat boy, new generation. Took our national debt from $1 trillion to $5 trillion, blew up the Middle East, and we had a real estate economic collapse in our country. Domestic side, foreign side. Way to go, George Bush, 43. You're a new generation of leadership. Followed by Barack Obama. New generation of leadership. What did he do? He blew up the entire healthcare industry. I mean, destroyed it. Destroyed it. And took our debt from $5 trillion to 10 trillion or 15 trillion. Then you've got a pause in the action with Donald Trump for 4 years. Sure, national debt went up some. We had the COVID crisis, but Donald Trump closed the border, protected the border, and nobody talks about this. Under George Bush 43, Putin took the province of Georgia. Nothing was done to him. That was under a Republican. Under Barack Obama, he took Crimea and started fooling around with Ukraine. Under George Bush, nothing. Under Joe Biden, invades Ukraine. No one talks about that. No one talks about that. And then we had an adult in the room. I hate that phrase. The adult in the room, President Trump, does a great job as president. And then we go back to Joe Biden, who's senile, worst president of all time. And now they wasn't. So don't give me this new generation of leadership. I will take Reagan's. I will take Trump's. I'd even take Jimmy Carter's over Bush 43, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Kamala Harris, the new generation. See, the same thing that we conservatives get upset about when it comes to diversity relative to race and gender, and we want meritocracy, the same thing has to apply to age. It's not about age, it's about who you are. Joe Biden is a great example of that. He might be old, but he wasn't even in control of his own presidency. We know that. He did not control his own presidency. But think about that. Let's analyze this a little bit more. Joe Biden, who I'm saying right now, worst president in our history. Why do I say Joe Biden's worst president in history? Because what happened with the economy, inflation, and the security of this world, there isn't any theater of a problem in this United States that he inherited detente, and he made it a nightmare. The border, what he's allowed happen at the border, unforgivable. Treason of the highest order. So it's easy. Joe Biden's the worst president of all time. Who's second worst president of all time? That's also easy. Barack Obama. Barack Obama, what he did with national health care, globalization, forgiveness tour, what he did, the infiltration of spies in this country that began under him, unforgivable. Third worst president, George Bush 43. He blew up the world with his invasion of Iraq, and he blew up the local world by sitting around watching the economy implode with the real estate banking crisis. Both fronts. You folks, you can't name one president. Trust me, I can name the presidents in order. At least I used to be able to. I can name the presidents in order. Maybe I'll do that one day off the cuff. But I want you to know, with no notes, but I want you to know that I know all the presidents in order. You cannot, I can go toe-to-toe with you. It's impossible for you to prove to me that there's a president worse than those three based on foreign affairs, domestic policy. There's no way. Millard Fillmore didn't mess up our country. Warren Harding didn't mess up our country. Grant was actually a great president, and he gets a bad rap because there was a little bit of corruption from some of his secretaries. That didn't blow up our country. Buchanan, he was a lousy president, but he wasn't going to stop that Civil War from coming. He wasn't going to stop it. It's just that simple. So we have had lousy leadership, and we have paid the price for it. Now, in my final 20 minutes here, I'm going to discuss something with you that is near and dear to my heart. Maybe sometimes on the podcast I'll bring out a whiteboard, although I don't really need a whiteboard. You maybe get tired of me saying that I battle the man every day. Well, I am going to talk about a legal topic that no one in the country talks about. And it's sad that they don't talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. In addition to bad politicians and bad presidencies and bad leaders, they're political gangsters. Remember, that's the word I've used, political gangsters. And also political Munchausen. They create problems and act like they're going to solve the problem. And it's how the legal profession has failed this country, and how the court system, legal profession, and the Association of Lawyers has failed this country through the largest law firms and what is known as the defense lawyers for corporate America in this country. And no one and they don't want it to be spoken about because they want to be doing this in silence. They want this to be quiet. They don't want anybody to see it, know about it, talk about it. But it's really, 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 really sad. And I want the world to know about it. Remember the famous McDonald's coffee case? Well, people don't realize that woman bought coffee at McDonald's that was 700 degrees. It was hotter than any other coffee. It wasn't even close to other fast food restaurants. McDonald's had been warnings. They had issues, and they didn't give a damn. And it's reasonable. They expected to spill coffee in your crotch. All the woman wanted was her medical bills paid. Nope. She needed skin grafting in her crotch, folks. The real facts of that case exposed that woman deserved every nickel. But what happened is, with the media and corporate America, my nemesis, and large defense firms, my nemesis, they went on a tour of quote-unquote tort reform and quote-unquote frivolous lawsuits and personal injury lawyers and all that. Well, it's all bogus. It's all a bunch of lies. Here is how the largest law firms in this country have helped destroy this country, destroy the legal system, and destroy the justice system. Here it goes. All across this country, in every single state, including Washington, D.C., New York, and including Cincinnati, Columbus, Frankfurt, so forth, the largest law firms. In Cincinnati, that would be Dinsmore Shoal, Frost Brown Todd, Voorhees, Creighton Head and Ritchie, Keating Mutiny and Kleekamp, Rendix Fry, etc. These law firms make so much money and represent the corporate interest of the region that they control who becomes judges. They use their money and their power to make sure who the judges are. They also control who runs the bar associations. They control who becomes appellate judges, Supreme Court judges from each state, whether it's Kentucky, Ohio. They control it. They also help control who gets elected to the legislature. They control who gets elected to Congress. They're the ones who write the laws that come out of Columbus, out of Frankfurt, out of Washington, D.C. They come from these big law firms. They write the regulations. They're every swamp, the 20-plus federal agencies, and every state has the agencies, all employ these lawyers, in-house and outside counsel, to draft legislation, draft regulation. Then corporate America pays them money to help them avoid those regulations, avoid those rules, and fight the battles. Now, here is a statistical fact which is true. Do you know, and by the way, I'm a capitalist, I'm pro-business. Do you know that there are more lawsuits filed between businesses and companies than individuals against anybody? That's a fact. So they've demonized the lawyers and they've demonized the people who are legitimately harmed. If you're in a car wreck and you're hurt, why shouldn't you be able to bring the claim? If you're hurt on the job, why shouldn't you be able to bring a claim? If you're a victim of fraud from corporate America, why shouldn't you be able to do it? Look what, by the way, here's the point. Look what the federal swamp did. When they laid down the vax mandate, they put in that law. It's Senate, our Senate and Congress passed it, Democrats and Republicans, immunity to the vax manufacturers. Immunity. So they can, and I always joke about corporate America. I said, Is it too much to ask that we don't give you immunity for anything and you should be able to be sued for fraud? Is it too much to ask that you be sued for fraud at least? Really? Right? Nope. Don't want to do that. So the large defense firms control. And remember, the movie Devil's Advocate, one of my favorite movies of all time, Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. Al Pacino, of course, played the devil. And at the end of the movie, Keanu Reeves' character asks Al Pacino, why the law? Why the law? And what did Pacino's character say? He said, it's in everything. It's in everything. Everything becomes law. Everything becomes a legal issue. And if you think that I don't have legitimate reason to hate and loathe the large law firms and the legal profession and the court system because of what they've done, it's not just what I see every single day that's happening to everybody. I don't know how an quote-unquote average Jane and Joe survives in this world with all the obstacles that are laid in front of them by the swamps, local, state, national, and otherwise. The rules, the regulations, the laws, the system. I mean, it's crushing, absolute crushing. But in the Durrani litigation, I had to retire from practicing law and become a legal consultant, which I thoroughly enjoy. I like it better than being an attorney because of my freedom. I can speak out. I couldn't speak out before. Because those large law firms representing those hospitals and corporate interests wanted me on the sideline, and it didn't work out the way they wanted it. Me on the sideline would end their problems in the Durrani litigation. And I outlasted them and outsmarted them. In addition to that, it is impossible. I'm going to share with you some things that you aren't going to find anywhere in the United States of America, any place. And it's this. For the first time in the history of law in America, there's an order that seals the verdicts that we win in those cases. You believe that? Have you ever heard of a verdict winning? By the way, the verdicts total $350 million plus. And they sealed those verdicts. How can that be? There's a rule that says a Supreme Court rule that says you're supposed to have your trial be done and over with your case within 3 years of it being filed. It's 11 years and counting, and we've only had 125 trials out of 580 cases. Now, some of them have been dismissed, but that's how bad it is. And the court system says, well, that's not enforceable. That's not an enforceable rule against the Supreme Court. Who in America would sit around and say, well, that makes sense? It doesn't make any sense. It's only to protect the rich and powerful. Can you imagine having a claim, whatever your lawsuit is? Just imagine this. I'm going to put this in context. Imagine you've got a claim against somebody in the state of Ohio, whoever it is, and you file it in 2013. Fast forward to 2024, and all other cases that have been filed in that county in 2013, over with. 2014, over with. 2015, over with. 2016, over with. 2017, over with. 2018, over with. 2019, over with. 2020, over with. But your lawsuit is not. That's what's happened to the Durrani victims, and nobody in the state of Ohio, legislators, judges, administrators, give a damn. Nor the federal judges. Nobody gives a damn. Nobody gives a damn. How wrong is that? That's why when this story is told, I am going to humiliate so many people. It's going to be so fun for them to get their comeuppance. Oh, it's going to be, I can't wait for them to get knocked on the door. Oh, we'd like to ask you, Chief Justice O'Connor, why you didn't give the Durrani victims their trials within 3 years. It's unbelievable. It's unforgivable. Unforgivable. And then to have laws passed that say that if you do not find out the problem under no fault of your own, including probable cover-ups from the hospitals, that if you don't find out that Durrani did an unnecessary spine surgery on you within 4 years, too bad under what they call the statute of repose. Both political parties passed that law, and it says that no matter when you find out your problem, if you don't file it within 4 years, even though you don't know about it, you couldn't have found out about it, you had no reason to know about it, even though if you don't file within 4 years, too bad. That is sick. That is evil. That is unforgivable. All of these things have been passed through the support of corporate health care, big corporate America, big corporate Ohio, big law firms owning legislators and judges. And, you can, I'll wrap this up with this. Do you know why it succeeds? How could these things be allowed to happen? How could this happen to judges, legislators, lawyers? It's supposed to be a noble cause. It's supposed to be a noble cause. I just read last night, and I think I'm going to use it for my email address, a Latin quote from Cicero that is interpreted as doing good for the people is the highest law. That's the highest law in the Roman Republic times. Where's that gotten lost when our founding fathers founded this country on Roman Republican principles and law? But here's why. And it's sad. It's sad. It's an indictment of our society. It's an indictment upon the legal profession. It's an indictment of humanity. And it's the same old. It's been around forever, since the beginning of time, since the beginning of civilization. And that's greed. And that's money. I am blown away of the individuals and the people in this world and in the legal profession. They're the leaders. They're the leaders who a country club membership, what kind of car they drive, where their second home is, what subdivision they live in, who their kids associate with, what country club they belong to, on and on and on, is more important than virtue. I'm a sinner, not a saint. I'm a sinner, not a saint. But I'm very proud of myself that I battle every single day out of virtue. Out of virtue. The self-sacrifice I make fighting for these Durrani victims and anybody that the law firms that I work with represent would blow you away. And I always remember Shakespeare. We do that Shakespeare insult today. And Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, one of my favorite Shakespearean quotes is, "A coward dies many deaths. The valiant only taste of death once. Once." And it's just so sad that we've gotten away from that. And there's some, by the way, there are some professions that have not gotten away from that. I'm going to compliment you. You don't become a school teacher unless you really have that virtue of educating children, because you're not going to get rich. You don't become a nurse unless you really want to take care of individuals. You'll make a good salary, but you're not going to get filthy rich being a nurse. There are some noble professions, but law is not one of them. And what's so funny about it, folks, is the bar associations and lawyers and the legal profession, they do all this hokey stuff like awards and pro bono awards and these awards and this award and that award and law day and everything else. And it's the biggest bunch of bullshit. It's the biggest bunch of bullshit. There isn't a lawyer in the tri-state that could have done, would do what I do. And yet I'm the one that's ostracized and marginalized. At least they try to do that. Thanks to you, they haven't succeeded. I refuse to allow them to define me and put me, quote unquote, in my place. I won't let it happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, the American Jury and Bulldog Nation, thank you for tuning into my second podcast. If the sound is wrong on here, I'm going to do something bad to Roger.
We're monitoring everything today.
All right. Roger says he's monitoring. All right. That's a wrap. I'll be back tomorrow for another podcast. Stay tuned, too. I'm going to be doing my news shows.